Hi, I'm Bob Schoolcraft, pastor at Friendship United Methodist Church, Punta Gorda, Florida. I'd like to welcome you on this 31st day of January 2021. John D. Rockefeller once said, "I will pay more for the ability to deal with people more than any other ability under the sun." Relationships. We all have them. John Donne was right. No man is an island. Now, I learned early on that the most important lesson that a father or mother can teach their children is how to establish and maintain proper relationships with the right people. According to a report by the American Management Association, an overwhelming majority of 200 managers who participated in this survey agreed that the most important single skill of an executive is the ability to get along with people. In the survey, management rated this ability more vital than intelligence, decisiveness, knowledge, or job skills. Relationships can make or break your child, and you too, for that matter. A true story illustrates graphically just how crucial relationships are and how vital it is to choose to enter into the right ones. Now, several years ago, and this is a true story, mind you, several years ago, two young women from Southern California spent the day doing some last-minute Christmas shopping in Tijuana, Mexico, a few miles below San Diego. And as they returned to their car, one of the ladies glanced down in the gutter and noticed something moving and squirming as if in terrible pain. And as they bent down, they noticed what appeared to be a dog and what they thought was a tiny chihuahua just struggling for its life. It was breathing heavily, shivering, almost dead. And they felt so sorry for this little animal they couldn't just drive off and leave it there. So they decided to take it home with them and try to nurse it back to health. But since they were afraid that the little animal would be detected by the border police, the patrol officers, they decided to hide it in the trunk of their car. After they got across the border and out of sight, they stopped, and one of the women took the little chihuahua out and held it in her arms the rest of the way home. And they pulled up in front of one of the ladies' homes, and they decided she would keep the dog through the night and try to nurse it and help it regain its strength. She took it in the house, tried feeding it, but it wouldn't eat. She patted it, she cuddled it, she held it, she talked to it, and finally she wrapped it in a blanket and, placed it beneath the covers in her bed to sleep with her throughout the night. She kept feeling it to make sure it was okay. And early the next morning, the animal was no better. She decided to take it to the emergency animal clinic nearby, and she handed the weakened animal to the doctor on duty and began to describe all the things she had done to nurse this dog back to life. And he quickly interrupted her and asked, "Where did you get this animal?" And seeing the look on his face and fearful of being reprimanded for bringing this animal across the border, she told him she was keeping it for a friend who had found it. The doctor looked at her sternly and said, "I'm not letting you leave until you tell me where you got this thing." She said, "Doctor, to be honest with you, my friend and I were shopping in Tijuana, Mexico. We found this little chihuahua in the gutter, and we've just felt sorry for it, trying to nurse it back to health." And the doctor said, "Lady, this is no chihuahua. What you brought home is a rabid Mexican river rat." What these two women thought to be harmless turned out to be not only dangerous, but deadly. How much truer is this of relationships? When it comes to our kids, and let's be honest, us adults too, peer pressure can be just as dangerous and just as deadly. According to Solomon, along life's way, your children will encounter people of every ilk and sort. Some will be friends, others will become foes. Even Jesus had his enemies. And others will prove themselves to be fools. Dad, Mom, You will do your children an incredible favor, and you grandparents here, do your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, an incredible favor by teaching them how to differentiate between these groups of people and how to relate to them with wisdom and personal skill. This morning, I'm going to give most of the attention to our relationships with our friends, and for that is where we will spend most of our lives. And I believe this relationship is the most crucial of all. Be committed to your friends. Early on, our children need to learn how rare and valuable true friendship really is. And I'm going somewhere this morning with friendship, okay? Quite frankly, none of us make it very many true friends. At least we better not, Solomon says. And a man of many friends comes to ruin, Proverbs 18:24. Nobody has many true friends, and it's dangerous to have too many friends. Nevertheless, as you journey along the path of life, one of the great treasures you find are the jewels of true friendship. There's a treasure trove of divine wisdom that we can glean in the area of relationships. The first key to friendship is being a friend. Solomon said, "A man who has friends must himself be friendly." Proverbs 18:24. And that is an alternative translation of this verse, but it's certainly a true one. If you want to have a friend, you must be a friend. I went out to find a friend, but could not find one there. I went out to find a friend, and friends were everywhere. I went out to be a friend, and friends were everywhere. I'm convinced that friendliness does not have to be limited to personality. Friendliness does not necessarily mean having an aggressive, dynamic personality, getting everyone's face, slapping them on the back with words flowing out, flowery words that everyone wants to hear 90 miles a minute. And some of these friends act like such fools that you wish they would be foes instead of friends. I believe even the shy, quiet, and reserved individual can be taught to be friendly. You do not take friends, you make friends. You do not take friends, you make friends. And the best way to find a good friend is to be a good friend. It's next to impossible to have no friends if you yourself are not friendly. Okay? Psychologists once asked a group of college students to jot down the initials of people that they disliked. And some of the students taking the test could only think of one person, and others listed as many as 14. One of them had 15. Those who disliked the largest number of people were themselves the most widely disliked. You will find that the more likable you are, the more likely you are to other people, and the more likely you are to like other people and to be liked by them. One of the greatest lessons I've ever learned on how to be a true friend came from a statement by Dale Carnegie, the author of the bestseller, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Also, Dare to Be Great by Dale Carnegie. Wonderful courses. Dale Carnegie said, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you." Being friendly is both a science and an art. It can be learned and improved on with practice. And if you will teach your children a few things early in life, it will carry them a long way in interpersonal relationships. Eye contact. Eye contact when you talk to people. Look them in the eye. Let them know it. They can see you. That's the path to your soul. That's the window to your soul. A smiling face now takes 14 muscles to smile. 14 muscles. A frowning face takes 72 muscles. Now, if you like to exercise, just go on and frown a lot, But no, a smile encourages conversation. It warms people to that. Call people by their name. Strangers are just that. They're strange. But a friend is known. Call them by their name. That shows that they mean something to you. And talk to others about their favorite topic. themselves. They like that. Find an occasion to give a word of encouragement, compliment, or show an act of kindness. Now, you show me a person who practices and applies these 5 traits with whomever they come in contact with, and I'll show you a person that has a reputation of being friendly. But friendships also involves choosing a friend. And let me give you a rule of thumb about friendship. Be friendly to everyone, but don't have everyone as a friend. Dads and moms, I urge you to teach your kids to heed this warning. The righteous should choose friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray. Proverbs 12:26. The word choose in Hebrew is T-U-R, and it's used most often in the Old Testament of a man searching out land. The wise person explores and evaluates prospective friendships, selects them prudently, and enters into them carefully. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Be slow in choosing a friend, and even slower in changing." And that's excellent advice, because it is important not only to choose friends, but to reject the wrong friends. The reason one chooses his friends carefully is because the way of the wicked leads them astray. 2 extremely wise men, one of history's greatest preachers and the other one of the greatest presidents, made 2 observations our children would be wise to hear and to remember. A man is known by the company he shuns as well as the company he keeps. Charles H. Spurgeon, preacher. Associate with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation, for it is better to be alone than in bad company. George Washington, our first president. It's fair to say that there are people in hell today, pardon me, because they chose the wrong friends. Our jails are filled with thugs who should have been college graduates contributing to society, but they ran with the wrong crowd. And our jails today are filled with friends of these persons who were wise in the street, and they left individuals holding the bag. Mark it down. Listening to the wrong people, following the wrong advice, emulating the wrong example is the sure result of wrong relationships. There was a farmer who was troubled by the flock of crows in his cornfield, and deciding that he had had enough, he loaded his shotgun. He crawled unseen along a fence road, determined to blow those crows away. The farmer had a very sociable parrot who indiscriminately made friends with everybody. Now, seeing the flock of crows, the parrot flew over and joined them, just trying to be sociable, mind you. The farmer saw the crows, but he didn't see the parrot. And he took careful aim and fired. Feathers everywhere. He jumped up, he ran over to see how many crows he had shot, and lo and behold, there was his parrot lying on the ground. A broken wing, a chipped beak, but it was still alive. And tenderly the farmer picked the parrot up, brought him home where the children ran to meet him. And seeing their parrot injured, they tearfully asked, "Daddy, what happened?" And before he could answer, the parrot spoke up and said, "That's what you get for hanging out with the wrong crowd." It's a truism that you can never be at the right place, at the right time, doing the right thing if you're with the wrong crowd. But friendship also entails keeping a friend. Once you find a friend, guard that relationship as you would the gold at Fort Knox. I believe there are 2 superglue qualities that can permanently cement any relationships: honesty and loyalty. Proverbs 27:6 reminds us, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." Friends, I'd rather be slapped with the truth than kissed with a lie. A real friend may wound you by telling the truth, but he will tell you the truth nonetheless. And a real friend may not always tell you what you want to hear, but they will always tell you what you need to hear. In the short run, it may hurt you, but in the long run, it will help you. Now, if you would like to measure a relationship to determine whether or not it really qualifies as friendship, here's 2 questions you should ask. Can I trust them enough to be totally honest with me? Okay? And number 2, can I trust them enough to be totally honest with them? Only a true friendship expects and can survive mutual honesty. The other quality involved in keeping a friend is loyalty. Solomon said there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And I have one of those, John Hill, a good friend in Georgia. And he and I have been friends for years. And he is as close as any brother that I have. The word stick refers to how the skin sticks to the bone. It's a very poignant picture of just how close-knit one friend should be to another. And one thing you should never have to question about a person who is your friend is their loyalty. A true friend will always be your defense attorney before he becomes your judge. There's no such thing as a fair weather friend. As a matter of fact, you don't need friends in fair weather. You need friends in foul weather. A fair weather friend is really no friend at all. Now, I've read several definitions of a friend. The late Irma Bombeck said, a friend is somebody who won't go on a diet when you're fat, okay? Someone else once said, a friend is someone who multiplies your joys and divides your grief. But the best definition I have ever heard is this one. A friend is someone who will walk into your house when the whole world has just walked out. I recall reading of a Christian by the name of Chuck Colson. He is indeed a truly born-again Christian. He tells the story of how he was invited to speak at the university out west soon after his release from prison. And there was still much hostility about Watergate, as there will be about the administration that's going to be changing here shortly. But there was much hostility about Watergate, especially towards Richard Nixon. Now, questions were being thrown at him in rapid fire, and the students were becoming increasingly hostile. And one student stood up and referred to the vicious criticism that Henry Kissinger had leveled at Richard Nixon. And he said, Mr. Colson, do you agree with that criticism? And Colson scanned the room, and he could tell that every eye was on him, ears tuned. They were listening. And here's what Chuck Colson said. We all know Mr. Nixon's negative qualities. He's been dissected before the press like no one else in history. I could tell you his good points, but I don't believe that you would hear them, and I don't believe I could persuade you to accept them. But what it comes down to is this. No, I don't go along with Henry Kissinger's comments. Mr. Nixon is my friend, and I don't turn my back on my friends. And Colson said for a moment he thought the roof would fall in, and in a way it did, but not as he expected. There was a moment of silence, and then a thunderous standing ovation. The reason? Even hostile students could appreciate the loyalty of a true friend. If you ever want to find out who your friends really are, just make a mistake. And many of those who you thought were your real friends will desert you like rats on a sinking ship. So Solomon admonishes in Proverbs 27:10, do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend. Be compassionate with foes. In life, your children need to know that they will make foes. They're going to make enemies just as well as friends. I call this a 3F sermon. It comes with the territory. The issue is not will they make enemies. The issue is how will they respond to their foe. Friends can bring out the best in us, but oh, how our foes can bring out the worst in us. Solomon passes 2 words of counsel along to his children concerning their friends and their foes. Your foes. Face them with forgiveness. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and do not let your heart be glad when they stumble, lest the Lord sees it, and it will displease him, and he will turn away his wrath from him. Okay? Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the wicked, for there will be no prospect of the evil man, and the lamp of the wicked will be put out. The following statement will be bitter to taste, hard to swallow, and difficult to digest. But better to take the medicine now than to allow the cancer of bitterness to destroy you. Never wish ill on your enemy. Leave that revenge to God. God can handle your foes and punish them far better than we ever can. When you take matters in your own hands, you not only dam up God's anger, but you hold back his vengeance. Revenge is God's business, not ours. Paul put that matter succinctly, yet firmly, when he said, "Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord," in Romans 12:19. The second piece of advice is to kill them with kindness. What? What'd you say, Pastor? You heard me, didn't you? It's not just enough to leave your enemies alone. We must be proactive and demonstrate love to them. Solomon said in Proverbs 25:21 or 22, "If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. For you will reap coals of fire on his head, and the Lord will reward you." Is he hungry? Cook a hot meal for him. Thirsty? Give him a glass of homemade iced sweet tea down south here, okay? And the result, you will heap coals of fire on their head. Now, what does this mean? Charles Swindoll explains it like this. He says, in ancient days, homes were heated and meals were fixed with a small portable stove, somewhat like our outside barbecue grill today. And frequently a person would run low on hot coals and would need to replenish the supply. The container was commonly carried on their head, so as the individual passed beneath higher windows, some of them on the second floor, thoughtful people who had extra coals in their possession would reach out the window and place them in the container on top of his head. Thanks to the thoughtful generosity of a few folks, he would arrive at the site with a pile of burning coals on his head and ready-made fire for cooking and keeping warm. Heaping burning coals on someone's head came to be a popular expression for a spontaneous and courteous act one person would voluntarily do for another. It has been well said that the best way to defeat your enemy is to make a friend of them. That can be done only with godly kindness. Dads and moms, teach your children and remember yourself. You are never more like Jesus than when you return good for evil and love your enemies. And be cautious with fools. There are 3 Hebrew words used to describe the fool in Proverbs, all rendered by the same English word, fool. The Hebrew term kesel refers to the hard-headed person who thinks they need no advice. And the term ewel has a root meaning of growing thick of fluids. And this refers to a thick-headed person who refuses to listen to counsel. And finally, the Hebrew word nabal refers to the empty-headed person who carries out his lack of wisdom in a foolish lifestyle. The fool is an empty-headed, thick-headed, hard-headed, obstinate person who gets an F in the school of wisdom. The fool may be intellectually brilliant, financially successful, socially admired, but they are morally and spiritually bankrupt. Solomon warns early about the fool. In the first chapter, he says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and knowledge." They think they know it all, don't they? Rather than go through every verse in Proverbs dealing with a fool, I went through and simply made a list of the categories of people Proverbs marks as a fool. And it would be good exercise for dads and moms to go over this list with their children to see if they know anyone that fits these categories. A fool is the loudmouth who loves to hear himself talk and forces others to do the same. The hot-tempered bully who thinks anger, violence, and guns, a bigger gun, proves their manhood or womanhood. The egotist who believes in a self-made man and worships his creator. In other words, worships himself. The person who lets praise swell their head rather than humble their heart. The pseudo-intellectual who thinks they know more than God and ridicules the Bible. The know-it-all who thinks that they know all there is to learn and what they don't know isn't worth learning. Now, that fool is often wrong, but never in doubt, I'll tell you that. The rebellious child or teenager who loves evil, hates good, thinks sin is a joke and righteousness is for sissies. The impulsive talker who always lets you know what is on their mind and is willing to give you a piece of it even when there is no piece to spare. The ladder climber who puts wealth, position, and material possessions above all else. Divisive troublemaker who loves to start arguments, hates to stop them, and doesn't mind losing a war as long as they win the battle. The wasteful spendthrift who blows money faster than they earn it, saves nothing, and gives even less to God. Knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. The self-confident person who trusts their own heart, mind, and judgment rather than the God who gave all three to them. The gossiping big mouth who spreads slander, lies, and half-truth, not caring who it hurts. Usually they have enough cowardice to talk about a person, but not enough courage to talk to a person. The hard-headed teenager who hates the wise instruction of a godly father or mother and breaks the heart of the parents. The stubborn sinner who never learns from their mistakes and keeps doing the same things repeatedly while expecting different results. I think we do that in our elections here, don't we? Don't go there, Pastor Bob. One of the reasons Solomon wanted to instill wisdom in the hearts of the children was to keep them from becoming fools. The reason he wanted to keep them from becoming fools was because fools die from lack of wisdom. Amazingly, the very thing that kills the fool is the thing that they reject and makes them a fool to begin with divine wisdom. How should your kids relate to a fool? By saturating their presence with their absence. Go from the presence of a foolish man or woman when you do not perceive in them the lips of knowledge. The bottom line is this: only a fool fools around with fools. Only a fool fools around with fools. Dad, Mom, the best person to teach your children about relationships and especially friendships is you. Grandparents, listen up to it, okay? I want to encourage you to show your children what a friend is like by being their very best friend. And Dad and Mom, when you get right down to it, friendship is what parenthood is all about. You can be a child's best friend, and part of that friendship is giving wise counsel. Solomon, says, I believe the children's best friends, the heartfelt counsel of a friend, as sweet as perfume and incense. Proverbs 27:9. Now, why did I spend all this time this morning talking and discussing friends? For Christ called us friends. And as friends who has friends, we are called and commissioned to invite our friends to worship. I've talked about reaching for the stars, and we're going to have the stars with the names on them as we invite people to church. If they come and attend, we write their name and yours on there. Christ called us friends. And as friends, the best thing we can do is to be friends to another and invite them to worship with us so that one day they can join us in the heavenly kingdom. Praise be to God. Amen.